Hi everybody, this is Kevin and welcome back to another video. And today I would like to share my thoughts on Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest episode 12, which was another awesome episode. The Battle of Fairy Tail and Drazel rages on with so many different factions up against one another. Of course, we have Team Natsu, we have the other members of Fairy Tail being controlled by the White Mage, and then finally we have Diabolos. And what I loved so much about last week's episode was Natsu going to Beta Heaven, where he was confronted with Zeref, Mavis, August, Arcade, and even Igneal in such a heartwarming scene. We also have so many interesting matchups like Wendy versus Nebaru. I already mentioned Natsu versus Wraith. We have Urza versus Jalal, if you want to call that a matchup. Loxus and Kyria. And then Lucy, at the very end of last week's episode, coming up with a plan to save the day yet again. I also want to mention that I've been talking about how I've been rereading the manga over the past few weeks, and as of right now, I am caught up to the most recent chapter. I typically only like to read the volumes, which I have physically, volumes 1 through 16, but I was loving it so much, I said I gotta keep reading, and I read up to the most recent chapter, which I think is 168. So, lots of good stuff still to come. I'm thinking in my head where Season 1's going to end, because as I understand, there's going to be 25 episodes, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's start going through the screenshots. I have comparisons to the manga panels, so we have lots of good stuff to go over. Let's start right away with Wendy, who is facing off against Nebaru, and I love how she's trying to explain to Nebaru that she is the Sky Dragon Slayer, and he's like, no, you're Cuckoo, you're the Cocoon Dragon. So this is my first comparison to the manga. You see it has her little arms and legs sticking out of her pouty face. A one-to-one translation, you gotta love it. However, Wendy is too slow because she's wrapped in Nebaru's webs, and he is able to destroy one of the Lacrimas. And this cuts over to the White Mage, who explains that 2 of the 5 Lacrimas on Alderon's back have been destroyed, and once all 5 are destroyed, she's going to seemingly take control of Alderon and all his power, similar to what she did to Mercphobia in the beginning of the series. So you see his menacing face, he destroyed the Lacrima, he's going to eat Wendy, he's going to eat her whole. And it cuts over to Alderon, who's just trying to take a nap. I mean, this guy, that's all he wants to do, he's just resting. Look how peaceful he is. The sleepy dragon, he's like, leave me alone. Who gave you permission to build all these towns and cities on my back anyway? Is probably what he's thinking. Oh, so we have Lucy is best girl. Second best girl in Kyria. And man, oh man, we're going to get to more manga comparisons. And I keep saying it, the anime version of Kyria is better. She looks better in the anime, and she looks good in the manga. The voice actor, fantastic. Both the Japanese and English dubs. I love her, man. And oh, the ass shot. How can we forget that? Lox is like, oh, not bad. So she's threatening him. It cuts over to Urza, because of course Jalal ran off of her, and he's like, I'm gonna dye you white, Urza, it's time to go. And she's like, unhand me, will you? He's got her all tied down with his magic, and he shows up, and it's like, we're gonna do this and that, Urza, let's go. And she's sweating, he's just sparkling over there. And yep, Urza, I shout out, dye you white. And he starts like touching her. Urza's like, get your hands off me. So she has him, take the restraints off, and she's like, all right, you want to dye me white? Let's go. And she starts unwrapping herself there, and she wraps Jalal up, and I just love this scene so much where, she's making this face, she's blushing, of course, because her boobs are exposed, and he's blushing too, like, oh, tighter, make it tighter, will you, Urza? Now, this is another thing, which we're going to get to another manga comparison, where a lot of times I feel like the anime sort of tones down the raunchiness, the fan service, but in this case, I would say that the anime was more out and about with, oh, look at Urza's tits hanging out, because in the manga, you have, she's got them exposed, but they're covered by Jalal, whereas here, they're just hanging out, it's just her hair's covering it. So I love that, that's so good, but there is one later where it's more raunchy in the manga and more censored in the anime. I just thought it was interesting how they handle that. But yeah, Jalal's digging it, man. It's time for you to get bound. Oh, he loves it. And they're both blushing. And you see they both made like the perfect face with the eyes, and she has no mouth there. Absolutely hilarious. But he's loving it, like I said. So then it cuts over to Natsu's battle against Wraith. And we heard this last week where Wraith was going around the town trying to figure out who he could synchronize with. And there were 3 different conditions. Number 1 was they had to be equal or more powerful with magical energy. Number 2 was they had to have a near-death experience. And number 3 was a blood relative or family. And he's like, okay, we're going to get the 2, no problem. But the 3rd one, I have no family. It can't be possible. However, once he synchronizes with Makarov, he starts thinking, wait a minute, is he part of my family? What's going on here? So he starts thinking about that and is able to access Makarov's abilities, to which Natsu's like, how is this possible? Gramps, he hasn't been able to use his legs since the Alvarez Empire War. What's going on here? So he starts attacking Natsu. Natsu fights back. And then we get an awesome flashback scene to the old members of Fairy Tail. All these guys we've seen before. Of course, we have Yajima, who's part of the Magic Council now. Well, actually, he was part of the Magic Council. Then he was a restaurant owner. That was in the Tartaros arc when the Raging Tribe, the Thunder God Tribe, are working for him, remember? There's Goldmine, who's now Quattro Cerberus' Guildmaster. Master Bob from Blue Pegasus. What happened to him? You see how he is with Blue Pegasus now. And then Rob, who you may or may not remember, he was the one in the Tower of Heaven arc who rescued Urza. And then there's young Makarov, of course. And even Poorly Yusuka, who's the medical advisor of Fairy Tail. You gotta love it. And there was a great scene. Okay, here it is in the manga, of course. So it shows all of them again. And they're all there. And there was a great scene where they're like, oh, you two, you should just get married already. And the two of them were like, I would never get married to her. You think I would marry him? Hell no. But I gotta ask a serious question here, because I've still never been able to figure this out. You know, it's never been in the manga or the anime, because Loxus is Makarov's grandson, and Ivan is Makarov's son, who we haven't even seen Ivan since the Grand Magic Games. Whatever happened to him? But we don't know who Makarov's wife is. Like, who it has to be Portaliuska, right? I mean, they have like this contentious relationship, and she lived out in the woods or whatever. So I don't know. There's a lot of hints that insinuate the two of them were husband and wife, or, you know, at least had something going on at one point or another. But just a beautiful shot of the two of them blushing. And then it even shows Master Precht, who would go on to become Hades. And of course, he was one of the founding members of Fairy Tail, along with Warid and Mavis and Yuri, Makarov's father. So this was interesting because Precht did not appear in the manga. In this scene right here, when it shows everyone, it shows Yajima, Goldmine, Bob, Rob, Makarov, and Portaliuska. It did not show Precht. So this was an anime exclusive scene, which is very interesting to me because I mentioned this last week when we had the whole scene in Beta Heaven. In the manga, Igneel mentioned Atlas, Flame, and Zirconis are over there, Lucy's parents are over there, all your other fallen comrades, and it showed Simon and then the two from the Phoenix Priestess movie. They were there, but they weren't in the anime for some reason. But now the anime adds Master Precht, which I thought, you know, he looked, I don't know, because I'm going to show you here. That's him from Fairy Tail Zero, right? But this is a younger version of him. This is many, many years ago, so he doesn't have a beard yet. This is him when he gives the title of Master to Makarov, and he's going to go off on his evil ways to become Hades. And then that's him as Hades. So I don't know. I guess he has to have some kind of beard, and he's not quite gray yet. So, yeah, I'm coming around on the design more. But he looked better, younger, I guess, and with the longer beard as Hades. I always really liked Hades as a character. He was one of my favorite villains in the original Fairy Tail series. Sad to see him go down the dark path, but it's cool to get the fan service scene like that, seeing him again. And this makes you want to reread or rewatch Fairy Tail Zero. What a great prequel series that was. So it shows all them. And then this is Wraith being brought back. This is in the Fairy Tail flashback, which is why it showed all those guys. Wraith was being brought back to Fairy Tail in a stretcher. And this goes back to the flashback where it showed all the other members and how Wraith was actually a member himself. So you have Makarov saying, don't die on me, Wraith. We're all family. And that helps Wraith remember. And he's able to part from this world because, remember, he was the spirit dragon. He's dead, essentially. But now that he has this memory, he's able to pass on. And before he does, he glances over at Makarov, who he was controlling before. And Makarov says something like, oh, Wraith, it was so great to see you again. And he smiles and moves on. And really another excellent scene. And it kind of makes me sad, though, because Wraith, I feel they could have done more with this character. He's literally only here for a few chapters, a few episodes here, and that's it for him. Because, as I said, I've been reading the manga, and he hasn't reappeared. Maybe he can reappear at some point, but as of right now, he hasn't. And it's just so many more connections to be made there. But I thought it was a great scene in and of itself. Natsu's back to normal and happy. He's like, oh, you're back. I thought you died, Natsu. What happened? So, a great scene there. And then our favorite drunk, Kana, shows up to save the day. And she's stumbling along. And what happens is Gray is like, okay, I gotta knock you out. And as he goes to punch her, she takes a sip and just ducks. And then she uses fairy glitter. And Gray, he's ready to brace the attack. But you see this wall comes out of nowhere. And who could that be but Lucy in her Aries star dress. And she has the perfect plan. And we also get to see Plo again, which I love seeing Plo, the legend, the Rave Bearer from Rave Master. And I love how Mashima always does this, where he has cameos to his previous works, like in Fairy Tail. You also had the Butt Jiggle Gang in the filler episodes, of course. Plo, who is a major character in Rave Master. Griffin, I think Griffin shows up a few times in Fairy Tail. You have Urza cosplaying, doing her play as Haru a few times, or was she as Ellie? I know they did the homage to Rave Master there as well, but we saw Plo, and, you know, there she is to save the day. You see her in her Aries. And with Plo, there's just a little panel there, whereas in the anime they show a couple little screenshots of him. So I always like seeing Plo. It turns out, though, that Kana was not under the White Mage's spell because she was drunk. So she's able to save the day, and Lucy came out with the plan to use her cards and trap the other Fairy Tail members in the cards so they can stop attacking them, and then they can defeat the White Mage and revert the magic so they're not under her control anymore. So Lucy's trying to look for Kana's cards, and you see Juvia's like, what are you doing, Lucy? And she thinks, oh, Lucy is fondling Kana. So in that case, Gray-sama, they're all yours. Why don't you fondle Juvia now? And Gray's like, what's your problem, Juvia? So here it is in the manga. Kana must have it with her. She was probably taking advantage of the confusion to touch her breasts. Gray-sama, would you like to take advantage of the confusion? Hell no. Why would you say hell no, Gray? Like, come on, they're there for the taking. Just follow them for a bit, will you? But Lucy finds the cards, and I love this. Someone did a Photoshop, posted it on the 4chan thread. Lucy has 4 Blue Eyes White Dragons. The haters will say this is fake. It's so real. But yeah, so Lucy's trying to use the cards, and it doesn't work, and traps herself in them, and she's like, oh no, my plan failed. What's going on? Kana, I caught Lucy. And this is where she reveals that, you know, she's not under the White Mage's hypnosis. She was drunk. She was drinking. So she's here to save the day. And so she captures the Thunder Tribe. This is another example of the censorship, which we talked earlier in this episode about how I felt in the anime they had Urza more exposed as opposed to the manga. In this case, Evergreen is covered up a little more because, as you see it in the manga, she's just wearing her bra and panties. So I don't know why they would take that out, but it is what it is. I guess she's missing a sleeve. That's as much fan service from Evergreen as you'll get, but I really don't know why, because Fairy Tail's always looking for these opportunities. So at this point, Kana's like, okay, since I was drunk, who put me in these robes anyway? And she's prancing around, and she says, I have no undies on. And they're like, whoa, what do you mean you have no undies on? And they all make their derpy faces. I love it. I love it, man. And Juvia too. It's just hilarious. So Lucy hugs Kana. I'm so happy to see you. You're gonna save the day, Kana. Let's do it. Let's rescue our friends. And I love it, man. I love how Fairy Tail, despite having such a large cast of characters, it primarily focuses on Team Natsu. You'll get more episodes with Gajeel, Juvia, characters like that, but they always make cases for someone like Kana to have some screen time. Loxus, he's more of a major character with Gajeel and Juvia, I think, as well. But the hierarchy always goes Team Natsu, Gajeel, Juvia, Loxus, then Kana. Then you get some more like Makarov, Mira Jane, Elfman. And I love how everyone gets to have their moment to shine in one way or another. So back to my other waifu in Kiria, in her battle against Loxus with her ass hanging out, of course. Loxus is like, you're crazy, lady, and he hits her one punch knocks her out. Like, he just one-shots her, and she's just, oh man, this guy's strong. And after that, she wakes up, and you see it in her eyes, the love and the twinkle in her eyes. I might seriously be in love. It was love at first sight after getting punched by Loxus. And this is another case where I think they did it better in the anime because, you know, I might have fallen for him, but we're zoomed in a lot on this panel because in the manga, it's literally that big. I had to zoom in so much, you know, to get it accurate. Whereas in the anime, it's huge. It's a whole, I mean, it's only for a couple seconds that it's on screen to get the screenshot, but still, it's like more details as opposed to a little tiny panel. So I gotta love that. You got Wendy again against Nebaru, which Nebaru eats his gum here, which makes him more powerful, and he attacks Wendy. That battle will continue either in next week's episode or the episode after that. So we have more to come with Wendy versus Nebaru. She has to break out of her cocoon, so she's no longer Kuko. And then we have Kana, Lucy, Gray, and Juvia getting the rest of them. There's Romeo, Wakaba, and Macau all captured. Back over to Kiria, which this is Urza going back to where Loxus was to, you know, secure the Lacrima so Loxus doesn't destroy it. And again, another instance where I believe the anime did Kiria better because we just have a little tiny panel. It doesn't even show her whole body there, whereas in the anime it's got everything, and it's like, dude, the animators are also in love with Kiria. That's what I think anyway. So Urza approaches Loxus, ready to throw down with him, and she transforms into her lightning armor, which just for comparison's sake, we have the manga, and a little different, honestly. It looks like she has more of a plate armor in front of her, whereas it's more of a cloth in the anime. And you also see, like, with her leg, her thigh there, it looks like it's more exposed in the manga. So just a little details to pick up on, but the hair and the ribbon and the weapon all look the same. So, what do you guys think? I don't know, I kind of feel like the manga is more detailed, but with the anime, you get the color, you get the voice acting, and you get the music, so. We have Natsu, along with Happy, going to the middle area, the back of Alderaan, because Natsu proclaimed, that's where the strongest has to be, and he starts name-dropping people like, oh, Mirajane, Loxus, even Jalal, I'll take them all on. And as he mentions Jalal, it actually cuts back to him, where he's still sitting there, and he's like, I'm waiting, Urza. What are you gonna do to me? I'm still waiting. He's still blushing. He's waiting for Urza to do whatever she wants to do, I suppose. But he'll have to keep waiting, I guess. So Natsu confronts the white mage, who's now passed out, and he's like, asleep or not, girl or not, it doesn't matter. He's gonna punch her. And then Happy's like, no, it's a defenseless girl. I don't care if she's a bad guy. You know, don't hit her, Natsu. And as he's ready to punch her, seemingly Toka, not the white mage, wakes up and says, Natsu, help me. Because remember, the white mage has like two personalities there. It has Toka, the good one, and then the white mage, the evil one. So at the very end here, we have Toka regaining consciousness, hugging Natsu, saying, help me. And that's where the episode ends. And next week's episode is titled The Scarlet Showdown, which is, as we saw, it's going to be Urza versus Loxus. So I don't think that's going to take up the whole episode. They're probably going to do some back and forth as they've been doing in the other episodes here. So I'd anticipate we're going to get, you know, Urza versus Loxus, of course, but also Wendy and Nebaru continuing their battle. And then we have Kana going around trying to rescue everybody. We still had Mirajane and Elfman versus Scullion and Madmole, which didn't show any of that battle. They just mentioned that it was still going on in the background. So lots of great stuff still to come. Remember, the first season of Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest was supposed to be 25 episodes. It still is 25 episodes. But typically with series like that, they'll do 12 episodes or 13 episodes, take a break, and then continue 6 months from now. However, Fairy Tail is going to run all the way through. So episode 13 will be next week. It's going to continue, I think, all the way to the end of December, early January, with no breaks. And I'm just wondering because it's about time to change opening and ending, and I wonder if we're going to get the new opening and ending theme next week, or if it'll be episode 14. But I guess only time will tell. I'm looking forward to it. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below, and stay tuned for more videos coming soon. So everybody have a great day, and peace out.
99.